Hello. Let's see if that works. Seems like my Streamlabs chat is not showing up, but I do see it on the window down below, so we'll go with that. Alright. Hello again. I'm back. So, we took off the anglerfish antenna thing here, and we filled that up with some putty. So that's a bit dry. We just filled up some seams here on the tail. Hopefully everyone didn't take off. So we'll go ahead and we'll start airbrushing this sucker. There we go. Now I can see it. Alright. I see ya. Okay, the chat's working now. So yay! Alright. Turn on our airbrush compressor. And where's my stuff at? Jeez. So unprepared. There we go. He's a big fish. He's gonna be fun to paint. My daughter says he looks like a big iguana. So alright. We'll get some stuff out here on the desk. Like I said, I hope everyone had a nice week. And if you were up in the north eastern states, it was quite chilly. So today is a nice warm day. Alright. Let's see what we're going to do here. I think we'll do some... we'll build up the skin tone with some dark gray blue. We're going to play around with some colors here. Keep it kind of a... you know... Yeah, we'll do the blue. We'll do that. We'll do that. There's still some stuff in there. There we go. Using Pro Acryl paints from Creature Caster. Oops. My favorite go-to paint. Add a little bit of flow improver to make sure it doesn't dry. We get a tip dry here. All right. Let's have some fun. Welcome everyone. If you have any questions, just go ahead and pop those in the chat, or you just want to say hello. My chat is working, so I can read back on it. We're going to do kind of a darker sea creature here. These big creatures, the airbrush is really nice to have. This is gonna be cool. If I put more paint in it. There we go. And with these paints, I really don't need to thin them that much for an airbrush. I'm just adding some flow improver, Vallejo airbrush flow improver, just to help reduce the tip dry where it dries on the needle. I'm using a Badger 105 Patriot 105. And it just comes out so smooth, so easy to work with. Getting right in there, and up here where the tail meets the body. Alright. Looking good. So I think what we'll do here, so go ahead and pull out the colors I want to use. So we got some purple, some green, and some magenta, along with the dark gray blue. So we'll use a kind of like a mixture of all those. And we'll just have some fun. So I'm gonna let that dry a bit. It doesn't take too long. I still got some of the dark gray blue in here, so let's see here. We'll add some purple into that. Making a mess here. Get kind of a nice purple gray here. Like I said, we're just trying to mix up some colors and have some fun. Add some more purple in here. We'll add a little bit of thinner. Don't really need to, but why not? Making a mess here. That's all right. Kind of want to make this a little. I want to darken that up a bit. We're going to darken that up. We'll use some burnt red for our shadows. That'll make it a nice darker purple. Hopefully. Maybe more of a purplish gray. Alright. Let's add some mahogany. This is mahogany. It's like a reddish brown. That'll really bring it down. Bring it dark to the darker spectrum. All right. Hopefully. There we go. That's a little bit better. It's a nice color shift. All right. Let's see what we got here. I think this is not giving me, well, more of a highlight than a shade. All right, we'll play with this. We'll use this as our highlight. Kind of a light purplish gray color here. So I'm just catching the raised areas of the muscles. They're very well defined and sculpted on this model. So. We're going to have the scales like a darker tone, while the skin itself a little bit more paler. Not much of a color shift, but there is a slight bit there. You can kind of see it. It's a little more grayish, purplish gray. Just slowly build that up. Rotate them around. There we go. Yeah, you can definitely see the difference between the two there. Yeah, you get a nice, cool purple. Alright. Let's go ahead and clean that out. All right. Wipe that out real good. All right. add a little bit of that. Some purple. Actually, I might not use green. Let's use some jade. Jade. Like I said, we're just having fun mixing some colors up. Let's see what this color looks like. Ooh, nice. Gives me a nice turquoise almost. Ooh, I like that. I like that one. I don't know how I did it, but what color, how many drops I use, but I like it. Very cool. Use this as our highlighting. Just gently pressing down the trigger to let the paint come out. Get a nice fine application. It's catching on my glove here. We're getting some color. Now the underside is not going to be too bright because that's going to be all in shadow where he's sitting on his base. Trying to manipulate him around. The paint dries really fast, so I'm not worried about it rubbing off. Even with my rubber glove here. So I'm spraying from the top down as I build up the highlights. Still got some paint in there, so we'll start adding our highlight color. Thinking of using bright ivory. I don't want to use regular ivory. That's got a bit of yellow in there. I still want to keep it closer to the cool. On the cool, so we'll add a little bit of bright ivory and see where we're at. And then add some white onto there. Just want a dab of paint in there. Okay, we're going to add a little bit more flow improver because I want more of a thin. Oops, a bit too much, I think. Have it a bit more thinner than normal. To kind of give it that translucent feel. So that's the progression we got going on right here. So just gently, I'm pushing down to let air out, but just gently pulling back to let some paint out. So that's why I was adding more flow improver to help it thin, so it'd be a little more thin consistency coming out, and to help reduce that tip dry. rather blue and turquoise right now. Flip you around. I'll get this back in here. Alright, definitely need to add some shading into that. But let's go ahead and add a little bit of white. The bold titanium white. I don't want a whole lot on here. That might have been too much. Too much came out. That's alright. No mistakes, just happy accidents. Spray it through a card. Make sure I get that color I'm working on right now. There we go. Because right down at the bottom of your airbrush, that was your previous color. So even though you mixed it up, it's still got some of that previous darker color in there. So you want to spray that through a bit on a, off to the side on a piece of card or whatnot to get the new color you just mixed ready to go through. Because worst thing is you're spraying at a highlight with a dark color and all of a sudden that bright color comes through. So now there. Now I'm ready to go. There's fins in here. I want those a little bit lighter. Just to help them stand out. We'll be adding purples and stuff to it. Running out of color here. coming from? Something red on his mouth. What? Don't have any red. Maybe I'm touching something. Alright. I'll remove this real quick. Go ahead and clean this out real quick. Does anyone have any questions of what I'm doing? Hey, Vargpun, how you doing? Welcome to the show. Welcome, welcome. Doing a quick clean of the airbrush while I switch colors here. What I have off to the side is a little pot that you can spray into it, and it's got a vent, so you can spray your excess paint or your cleaner into it. I use it mainly to hold the airbrush. Sometimes I'll spray through it, but otherwise I just use my little coffee cup. Still blue coming out of that. So just flushing. Flushing out the little hopper there. I just do it in my regular. Vargpun is asking if I use a booth with a ventilation. No, I don't. The acrylic paints are so thin that it doesn't leave a haze in the air. You definitely, I mean, you could use a booth, but I find it's not needed. I might get one. My friend's made up his own little booth thing with a vent from a bathroom. He just kind of attached it to a Tupperware container, and it vents out through there. Where my painting area is, there's I have a bathroom nearby that I have the vent on. Oh yeah, yeah. My space is very limited too. But yeah, I just spray right here on my desk. I have the vent going on. If you're spraying, I found that I have no problem with the smell. Even I have the door closed to the room, so it doesn't go into the rest of the house. But if I'm spraying like a lot of primer, all right, let me turn off my compressor real quick. If I'm spraying a lot of primer, if I'm priming a bunch of things, it does kind of go, you know, the smell does carry into the rest of the house. I just have the second bathroom is in the hall, so I just turn on that fan too. So I have like 2 fans going. If you're near a window, definitely open up your window. But I live up in Minnesota, and right now it's rather chilly, so we can't open our window. But if I haven't had any issues with just spraying in the room. So I hear different things. Yeah. Yeah. But I've heard people using a booth, or the main thing that I could see with using a booth somewhat as the ventilation is where you're spraying. I don't care if I get this is just a fold out table that I picked up at a Walmart, and I don't care if I get paint on it or anything, so it's no big deal. But if you are painting in an area that you're concerned about it, definitely cover up your work area and spray into the booth, and you could use a vent. It doesn't hurt. Either way works. I found this works best for me. No, not really, because it's thin. I've used, if I can reach it here, I find the Vallejo surface primer has more. I'm not sure if it has more of a smell or something, because I was doing a lot of priming last night, and it lingers. But having those 2 fans going, it's fine. And I also use Badger Stein-Lorez primers. They're both thin enough because you're basically spraying, you know, very small particles into the air so it doesn't linger. But sometimes like I said, if I do a lot of priming, that smell kind of lingers. It's slightly, and it's just enough to where my wife's like, "Can you turn the fans on?" So I just turn the fan on. I wouldn't use a spray can in the house, because that's too much, and the aerosol and everything, you have that aerosol smell. People say, go into your bathroom, turn on your vent, and prime in there. I'm not going to do that. So yeah, the spray can, because of the aerosol in it and stuff, is really strong. I used to go out on the balcony, the same thing as you, would go on the balcony and prime with a spray can, leave it out there for about an hour or so, and even, you know, during the summer where it's nice and warm, and then come in and bringing it in, I bring in the smell, and my wife, it was just terrible. So I started doing brush-on primers, which you can brush-on prime with these airbrush primers, and I just recently picked up an airbrush about a year ago and started really working with it. Yeah. Little red spot. I find with the primers, you don't really have, it seems like you're wasting a lot of paint to prime a small little model with a spray can. Demonic Beaver, thank you for the subscription. Welcome. I find using a spray can to prime a small little model, you're using a lot of the primer than trying to cover it. With an airbrush, you're more controlled. I got a couple here that I primed. So this is, I just primed this black. It's a gaming piece for a board game called Scythe. So I just primed that black. This is a Kingdom Death model. My white balance is really off here. It's white. It's too bright. There we go. I primed her black, and then I used the airbrush at different angles to spray small white, a little bit of white to get that gray, and then concentrated more in certain areas to get that that brighter white. Yeah, the zenithal highlights. So like her face, her bosoms, her knee there, and then some of her ribbons will be more brighter color. But then you turn it upside down, and you can see, on the bottom of her butt, the bottom of the streamers, that's all dark. So even if I'm painting those areas a bright color, it's because of the undercoat of the black primer will make it a darker shade of that. Where on top, I use the same color, it'll be brighter. Yeah, it's zenithal priming, zenithal highlighting, pre-shading. It's all the same. And like these models, I just prime black and then I just start painting over it. I'm not concerned of it being bright because I will add a lighter color on top. It's just for simplicity's sake. I just primed them all black and now I'm just painting over them. Let's see what else. Yeah. So at the beginning of the stream, this guy, he was all zenithal primed, but I cover that up with my base coat, so it's much brighter where it was white, even with the base coat, and then darker underneath. And that also gives me a guide of where to put my shading and highlighting. Let's go back. Yeah. So like this one, it was mainly primed black. This is the stand that he sits on. I can find the pins in his hand here. There we go. So when it was zenithal primed, the model was attached to it, so we could figure out where the lighting would be. So up here it's going to be brighter, but of course down here underneath them is going to be much darker. So this gives me a guide of where to put my shading and highlights. But it also, even if I cover up, or cover up this primer with the base coat, it still will be a darker shade than it would be up here in the brighter areas. Get the entirety of zenithal and tips. Yeah. Yep. That's exactly. It gives you a guide to paint. Where it's like, okay, I see where the shading is, because these are all the 3D aspect of it. Demonic Beaver, thank you for the follow. You did the subscription and the follow. Thank you. Welcome once again. As I was saying with the zenithal and everything, because they're three-dimensionals and you can kind of see where. Here, let me get one that's not primed or anything. I have a model here. Let's move some of this stuff out of the way. So this is a Crusader robot, Warjack from Privateer Press's War Machine. This is just the bare plastic. So as you can see with the three-dimensional, holding it up underneath your lamp, you can see where the shading, would obviously be underneath the arms and such. So when you prime it, I prime it black, and then I hold it at this angle, and I spray a lighter color on top. It doesn't have to be a gray or white. Let's say if I wanted to do this mainly in blue, I could do a blue-black. I could do the primer coat, which would be a dark black, because that would be your darkest shadow, and then do a dark blue over that at roughly a 45-degree angle all around, or in certain areas like right here where the light's catching his kneecaps here and the tips of his feet, mainly up here. I would do that coat, and then I'd take a lighter blue or mid blue and go even smaller areas like I was doing with the airbrush. You have more control with an airbrush than you would with a primer can or a spray can, because that just sprays out one solid paint and you would cover the whole thing. But thankfully with the airbrush you have a little bit more control. Once you get the control of using the trigger, so you press down to get the air and then you pull back and that would let out the paint. So you just gently pull back, as I was doing with those brighter highlights, just to get enough paint to come through. So I would go through with my mid-tone and then the lighter tones, like where I wanted more prominent areas to be brighter. And that would give me a guide, and I'd have my base coat of blue, and then I could go in and then touch up all the details. Let's say I wanted these crosses, the Benefits crosses, a darker color like gold or something. I would take my brush, a regular brush, and just paint all on that. Yep, no problem. That's what I'm here for. So the airbrush isn't a be-all end-all way of painting. It's an additional tool to paint. It speeds up processes, you know, where you can get quick base coats on it, quick priming. You can build up highlights. You can also use the airbrush and get there in really fine detail if you so desire, and you have the skill, and it takes, you know, with everything it takes practice and things like that. But the airbrush, you know, doing that way, I can have all my blue on this model done with the airbrush and then come back in with the smaller details with a regular brush. Yep, most definitely. I picked it up for priming and base coats, and now that I'm comfortable with that, I'm able to go further in and do more detail work and such. This guy, this hill troll that I did a couple weeks ago, all his skin is done with the airbrush. I did all the shading with the airbrush, all the highlights with the airbrush, and then I went in and then applied all my base coats with the brush and did all the details. But the skin, I didn't really add anything to it except some spot washes of different colors to make them look dirty. That's all with an airbrush. And I could go back and add some, you know, highlights onto him if I wanted to, but he turned out really good and I'm very happy with it, and he's ready to go smash some face on the table. I might add some greenery, like some grass and shrubbery to him, but I'm not sure if I want to do that. I kind of like the way he is right now. He looks really good, and I was like, I think I'm happy with that. Yeah. Like 2 weeks ago Tuesday, I like not earlier this week, but last week. You can the videos are down below. You can view that, how I did that. So yeah, he turned out really good. I'm very pleased with how he turned out. Also, I have those two parts on my YouTube channel, so I just posted those up. But yeah, when I first started with the airbrush, I didn't think I could do that. So it was kind of like all caught on tape. It's like, oh, this is turning out really nice. I think that was like the third or fourth time that I tried painting that model. I painted it and it didn't turn out right, and tried it again. So it took me a few times to get where I was happy with the paint job, and then I continued with it. So, getting my nectar of the gods. Oh yeah, he turned out really nice. I'm really, really pleased with it. I'm using a Badger Patriot 105, and this is a good what they call a workhorse brush, but an all-round brush, airbrush. I can get I can use my priming, I can use my base coats, and I can get in there with some fine detail work. I actually won this in a painting competition at a local convention a couple years ago. So that was really nice. The compressor I got, I don't remember the name of it. I think it's a Masters airbrush. I have the all the stuff I worked with. Yeah, that's the best way of getting an airbrush. Yeah, and I went to the same convention. It was last November, and Ken from Badger Airbrushes, he was there, and I told him, I was like, yeah, thanks again for giving me that airbrush. It's been coming in handy, and he's like, oh yeah, cool. So he gave me some. I won another competition that year, and I got some more paint, so it works out really nice. But you can pick up, if you're just starting, this is a Masters airbrush, and it's a great. I have I don't have a link, but I have a list of what equipment I use down below. And I bought this with a small little compressor off of off of Amazon for about $50. You get a very nice airbrush, the hose, a small little compressor, everything to get started. And it's all airbrushes are good. It's main, even the cheaper ones, as long as you take care of them, they'll. This needs to be cleaned out a little bit better in the cup here, but I could attach this to my compressor and I could be painting with this right now. So it just needs a little bit more. It just needs some cleaning, but that's okay. None of that paint's gonna come off into my cup because it's all dried. But yeah, you can get a cheap little airbrush kit like this one. I first started with a Master Airbrush, and I've even smaller, like square size compressor with a hose for about $40. Yeah, $50 to $60. Yeah, you might be able to find something less than that, but even $120 for an airbrush and a compressor, yeah, you would. I'm guessing that would be higher taxes, but even $120, that's a great deal. You get a decent airbrush, I'm sure, and a decent compressor, and start playing around and getting used to using the trigger. This is a dual action where you press down and press back. You press down for the air and pull back for the paint. You don't need to, pull it all the way back. Otherwise, you'll have a big, that's a lot of paint coming out. Once you get use of handling the airbrush and to cleaning it and to thinning your paint for it, once you get that down, everything else for me seems to all come in line. Yeah, and that's actually a really good price for it too. $150 for it. Yeah, and it's a good brush. It is a really good brush. But I can get. I was doing the same techniques with this, so it works really well. You don't, like I said, you don't need a very pricey kit. That can come later if you want a more up-ended airbrush. You start, because this will last you for a while, and then once you're ready to move up, then go ahead and move up to one of the other name ones. Iwata, there's Badger, Iwata, Heinrich, and I can't remember that other one. Heinrich and Steenberger or something like that. It's two names. And those are like the really fancy ones. A friend of mine, he has one of those, and I was seeing him working with it, and it's really nice. But it's I get great results from this and from this. So this has now become my backup one. Or if I want to, I have 2 different brushes doing 2 different things. That's my backup one. All right. So we got... I don't know, maybe I will put that back on. It was helping with my light. My light seemed to be too bright. That I took this off. All right, so we'll put this back on here. There we go. There are paints specifically for airbrushing. They're very thin paints, but I found once you figure out how to thin down your paints, and it's not that hard. You get some airbrush thinner and some flow improver, and just thin your paint. You want it to be very, thin, where you use a cup. Here, I'll show you how to thin a paint real quick. All right, we'll use this. These are this is Meridius Blue from Formula P3 by Privateer Press. It's a pretty thick paint to begin with. I don't have any Citadel paints on hand close by, and they don't come in these dropper bottles. I transferred them to dropper bottles, so I'm gonna thin this real quick. As you can see, it does come out pretty thick. And just get yourself an old beat up brush. As you can see, the paint is pretty thick, on the brush. So we want to thin that. Even the Pro Acrylic paints, they come out thick, but I barely thin them to run them through. That's why I find that the Badger Airbrush Patriot, the Patriot 105, I call it my workhorse brush, because I can put a pretty thick paint in there and I can still spray it through. Not too thick, obviously, but I don't want to add flow improver. Main reason why I find using airbrush improver is to help the paint from drying on the needle. You can see that. Yeah, the needle right there. Alright, so we got our paint in here. I had about, a couple, 2 or 3 drops of the airbrush thinner to get it started. So it's brushing up against the side of the cup. It's coming off really nice. It's a little thin. Another good way to check it is if, using a brush to stir it, is pressing the bristles up against the side of the brush. And if you can see the bristles coming through the paint, it's the right consistency. Also, if you drag it up on the side and it flows back down, leaving a little bit of paint behind, then that's right too. So this just needs to be thinned a little bit more. We're going to add a bit of flow improver. That helps, obviously it flow well, as well as thinning it. It keeps it sticking, but it just it's thin enough to flow. So you just keep going back and forth. If it's too thin, you add more paint. If it's not thin enough, you add more thinner and flow improver. See how it's dripping back down? That would be the proper consistency. So when you're first, I kind of go back and forth. When you first are starting to airbrush and thin your paint for the airbrush, don't put it right into your airbrush. Practice with this, with the cup, and still, I still use this from time to time. But as you can see, as I'm rotating the paint around, it's flowing really well. It's nice and thin. People say, oh, this is a consistency of milk, skim milk, things like that. Well, my skim milk where I'm at could be a different consistency of where you're at, and also environment, things like that. So it is always different for each person. But as you can see, it flows really well, and I could use this color right in the airbrush right now. And the number one problem of having issues with the airbrush is if your paint's too thick and it clogs it up. But once you get the hang of how to thin it and being able to clean your airbrush when you have those issues, that's like half the learning. Also, while you're airbrushing, you can get some paint on the edge of your needle, and it clumps up and it doesn't start to flow well. You just use your fingernails to pull off that paint. All right. Build up that pressure again. In fact, I'm going to use a cup to mix up my shade color here. So for my highlights and my shadow colors, I'm using my base color in the mixes. So I'm still using the dark gray blue. Probably put in more than I needed, but oh well. Gonna add some jade to that. That'll give me a nice turquoise color. Roughly about half and half. Same amount of drops. Excuse me. Gives me a nice dark turquoise type color. I want a little bit darker, so we're going to go ahead and add, what are we going to add here? Let's add some dark umber, so like a dark brown. I don't want to add black to it because that will kind of suck up out all the color. It'd be too saturated, too much. I want to keep some of this color. And adding black, it does darken it, but it also sucks out the vibrancy of the color there. It didn't give me much of a difference there. Made it a little bit darker. That's my mid-tone. That's my base coat right there. And that's not much of a difference. It's a different shift in color, but not as dark as I want it. All right. Let's go ahead and we'll add some of the burnt red to make it warm it up a bit. Bring it more to that purple. There we go. So it gives me a nice dark turquoise. Shifting more towards that warmth with that red in there. As you can see, it's flowing. I'm going to add a little bit of thinner in there. Just to help it flow better. And I put some flow improver into the bottom of the airbrush, or already into the airbrush. And you just pour the paint in there. I don't have a whole lot in there, but I don't really need a whole lot because it's thin. So that gives me a nice dark turquoise color. So we're going to paint from this angle and get into, excuse me, nice pectorals there. So just underneath all the musculature, all the muscles. Like so. This kind of gives me more of that aquatic look. Go ahead and use that to darken his eyes. His teeth there. Sometimes he's a little bit hard to move around here. Shading there on the brow. So you can see I can get some really nice fine lines, and all I'm doing is gently pulling back on the nozzle. So I press down and then slowly pull back. Let's manipulate him around. So I'm painting up where the fin here and the arm attach. And just underneath the scales here. This part here. I'm not sure if I want to make that kind of a bony plating or what I want to do with that yet. So we'll leave it alone for now. So then right under here, you see where the flap folds, curves up, and underneath it's all dark in there. So I'm going to just spray right in there to give it some color. So that dark color starts to blend out. He's got these little circles here on the tails, so it's more of a ridge near the front part here, so I'm just painting right in there to give it that shadow. Almost like a backwards J. Or like a backwards hook like that. So where I was the highlight going from the top down, now I'm going from the bottom up for the shading. And you can do this both ways. I could have started with the shading first and then do the highlighting. But, I mean, you can go either way. There's no right or wrong way to paint. There's no specific process of doing it. I mean, obviously you need to do your base coats and then work up your, highlights or work down your shadows. But you can't do the details without the base coats. So that's the fundamental part. You do need to have that. And it works best from a primed model. You want to add primer to your models, because that helps the paint stick. So those you got to do first before you do anything else. But that's all part of the prep work. But when you're actually doing the painting, you can go either way. It's probably catching stuff out. Because this is the bottom part underneath, I'm adding more shadow. Yeah, I'm running out of my paint. Still got a little bit left in there. And just from that, he's definitely got more. I'm going to darken up that shading. Moisture Baits, hello. How you doing? Lovely name. So as you can see right there, he's already starting to come together, looking good. Thank you. Alright, so I'm just doing an overlook to see. Yeah, it was, it's from Reaper Bones. It's the Drogon, Father Dagon. And he needed to be assembled. There were some parts on him that he had to be put together. And he comes with a base. And it's that Reaper Bones white metal. Not white metal, white plastic kind of PVC thing. I think the price on it, US, is I want to say it's $12 or $15, maybe $20. I don't remember offhand. Not that expensive for such a large model. Oh yeah, the Reaper Bones, because of the material and everything, they're really really low price. I find that the detail on the larger models are much better than the smaller ones. But I mean, you're paying $2-3 for the regular ones. But they're flimsy. You know, it's the plastic rubbery material. It holds decent detail for them. And they're great for just painting up real quick and putting them on the table. This is kind of like a dark fairy mermaid. She's got wings and a fishtail. So, show this guy earlier. This is a hill troll. I put him on a base. He didn't come with a base. I put him on a round base with some slate rock to help keep him stable because of this big arm holding the tree trunk. He kept tipping over. So I just pinned him through his feet, drill a hole through his feet, through the rock, into the base, and just put a piece of like paper clip or wire to hold him on there. He was like $8. I really like the monsters from the bones. No, not really. There is the miniature paint that's out where you bought the miniatures. They should have some. There's different paint lines, but they're water-based acrylic paints. Those work best. You could use the hobby craft paints that you can get at hobby and craft stores. Those work too, but the pigment, how the paint is, it's not as finely ground as these are. But yeah, there's a wide variety of paints to pick up. Reaper Miniatures, they make their own paint line. It's really good paint. There's a lot of choices. There's Games Workshop that does the Warhammer, Age of Sigmar, and 40,000. They have their own paints. Privateer Press. The paints I'm using is the Pro Acryl paint line from Monument and Creature Caster. I really like them. They just came out like late last year, and I fell in love with them right away. I love painting with them, so I'm trying not to be a pusher of it, but I really enjoy them. They're great paints right away. They're very easy to work with, very easy to airbrush, to paint with a not so much biased, but I really enjoy them. So by no means am I being paid to push them, but I've been painting for about 30 years, and they are the best paints. I've used a wide variety of different paint lines throughout those 30-some years, and one that was high up there was Games Workshop, and then I started painting with Vallejo, and I like those. They had their goods and bad. They have, a lot of them have pros and cons. With these, I haven't had that issue, and I've been painting with them nonstop since I got them early December, so almost 2 months now. I bought the full paint line. There's 29 at the moment. New ones are coming out next month. A new set of 16s coming out next month to add to it. I bought the full paint line when they were released, and since then I've made another couple orders just to add colors that I've used a lot, like the dark browns, the black, the metal, things like that. In fact, this is my first empty bottle. I just finished that empty bottle. Yeah, I really enjoy them. I'm able to do, you know, just regular painting so much easier, because I used to have to fight the paints to get them to work right. This, I put them on my palette and I'm ready to go right away. Oh yeah, yeah, they're perfect for painting with a brush, and also with an airbrush. I don't have to thin it as much.
Where's the one I painted up?
This one I just painted today. Hopefully you can see it. Well, hold on a minute, and I'll put the link down below. Hold on one second. Let me bring up their... I'll get their link. See here. I don't want to get the US. There we go. That's the one I want. They also sell paints. Besides the paints, they sell brushes. They sell... there we go. Yep, no problem. They also sell brushes. They sell models, the creature caster models, large resin models. Right now they have it's a bunch of different demons. Just a fair warning with the females. A lot of them are bare-breasted and such. So if not to alarm you, if you switch onto it and you see it, oh my gosh! Just giving you a fair warning to that. They're great-looking models. Waiting. I ordered. I just like to let people know. So, but yeah, just click onto this. Click on to what country you're in, with the U.S. or EU and such, and then you can order the paints. You can build your own paint line, like how many paints you want. Let's say you want to get just 8 to try them out. You get 10% off of the price. They're $3.75 US per bottle, but if you start building up your own paint botch set at 8, it's 10% off. At 16, it's 15% off. If you buy the whole set of 29 paints, it's 20% off, and you get 3 empty bottles with agitators. They all come with agitators, which helps mix up the paint. And that's, like I said, 20%, so it's like $89, so less than $90 for the full set. Awesome paints. Also, you can go to their Twitch channel, Slow Fuse Gaming, and that's Jason and Jen. They're the ones who designed it and run that, and they have a lot of stuff that they show on there. So, but yeah, I love the paints. I love using them, and I've been using them. I've gotten rid of all my other paints. I just use these, plus a few Citadel shades from Games Workshop. At least until they come out with shades. Thank you, Moisture Baits, for following. Alright, so what else were we doing? We're going to add some more shading to this guy. Alright, so I got, it's still kind of wet residual in there. So we're going to add some black. No, I don't want to add black. No, I say no. All right, let's darken this up a bit. Mix up. Our previous layer. Let's get that out of the way. Then the tops are great. They're just twist tops. You just twist to open it, drop out how much you need, and then twist it back, and then just wipe off the top. So much easier to work with than the Vallejo dropper bottles, where you twist them off and you get all that gunk up in there, and it just becomes a mess. Another selling point. Yeah. I mean, they're great paints. I do like them. I do like using the dropper bottles. In fact, I switched all the P3 paints to them and my Citadel paints. But I don't use those anymore because of these. So, add some burnt red. So I'm making my dark color again. That shade color I did. And now we want to darken that up. Ah, heck, we'll add black to it. That's for sure. But I don't want to add too much black because I don't want to darken it too much. Because adding black will really... You got to be careful when adding black or white because it can oversaturate it or desaturate it. I still want that color, I just want it a little bit darker. So it's a lot of trial and error when mixing paints, but once you get an idea of what works best. It's all experiments, nothing precise. Alright, so that should work. And I was jabbing away and I didn't clean this out. So let me do a quick clean of this. So now I got some dried paint in there. Just use an old brush. I just cut the ends down to make it kind of like a scrubby brush. I don't want to shoot that through because it was all dried, you know, clog up my needle. So just rinsing it out. Taking my paper towel and just doing a quick swipe. Yes, in most cases, yes, you can. And sometimes I'll do that where, let's say I got a paint mark in the wrong spot. I can quickly wipe it with my finger. Or just clean off my brush. Lightly dampen it, and then wipe it off. But if I miss it and it's dried, I can go back and paint over it easily. The paints do dry fast, but not, you know, like not instantly fast. They're still quite wet. Alright, so that's... I have two different bottles here. The smaller one is just pure water, filtered water. And this is got a bubble on it. This is about 10% alcohol, isotope alcohol, and the rest is water. And that's my cleaning solution. So I'm going to run some water through my brush here, the airbrush. So it's just kind of rinsing it through there. Huh. Oh, I turned off my compressor. Why is this not blowing? I forgot I turned off my compressor to talk. I didn't turn it back on. There we go. Thank you. Alrighty. He looks really cool. I like the way he's coming out. Paint dried. That's probably more than I need. But I just want to make sure I don't run out. Are you talking about moisture base? What are you talking about? The tools? Are you looking at the website? The Creature Caster website? Or are you just talking about what tools I have here? Oh, okay. This thing? Yeah, that's a cool little thing. I gotta clean it. I gotta dump it. Alright. Yeah, it's really neat. I mainly use it as a holder. I usually use it as a holder, but yeah, you could spray in there and it's filtered so it doesn't come out, and you just unscrew the top and then dump out the paint. Alright, I wonder if this is dark enough. Yeah, it's a little bit darker. There it is. Alright. Put the lid on top of here so I don't spill it. So this is a darker, like turquoise? Blue, black turquoise? So I'm just painting in the same shadowed area, but just further in. Just paint the nails. So all the spikes and stuff, the teeth, I'm going to spray with this color. If I can get it without getting other areas. Plating's almost look like... I'm not sure what I want to paint those. I'll have to look at some pictures. So just doing the same thing as the previous layer, but just further down in the recesses to make it darker. Define the muscles and all that stuff. darker shadows, brighter highlights. So I'm holding them under my light to see where it would be the shadow and the highlights as a guide here. Alright, so I think we're getting to the point where we're done for the moment on him. At least with the airbrush. Sometimes you get to a point, he's like, okay, I need to stop, otherwise I'm going to spend so much more time on this. Alright, we'll set him aside. And I think I have quite a lot of this color. Yeah, so I'm going to use this color to start adding some base coats to this, or just some quick shading on this, and then we'll add some grays. do the highlighting on here. So we'll do this real quick. All right. I'll clean this up real quick. I'm not going to do a full cleaning because I still want to keep some of that color in there. So we're going to make the stonework here kind of a grayish tone. This dark warm gray. I'm using the same base coats colors that I did on the shading on Dragon, so it keeps it all together, but it still will stand out, but not too much. You don't want the base that it's sitting on to be overpowering from the actual model. Everyone, their eye will draw to the base instead of the model, which you want it to look at. So let's see what this color looks like here. Yeah. I'm spraying out that previous dark blue to get my gray. There we go. So I want to keep that blue, that dark blue turquoise color in the recesses here. So just building this out to the rays. There he is. It's still kind of wet right here underneath the chin of the looks like a sea dragon. So I'm just pressing down air, not pulling back for the paint. That just applying air to help dry that. So I can go back over an area and apply more paint to make it brighter with the same color, because the layers are so thin. Twist my arm here. There we go. Yeah, this dark warm gray has got kind of a concrete look to it, but having that little bit of blue mixture makes it look really cool. All right. We're going to add some lighter colors to it and bring up those highlights. So we're going to switch to the bright warm gray. Add a couple drops in that. And making a mess, which is nothing new. Oh, I'm always making a mess when I'm painting. Alright, so we're just making it a little bit lighter, building up those highlights. I'm just spraying on the card to get to that lighter color. There we go. And the same thing. Just in a smaller, bringing it closer and closer to the edge. Same thing that you would do with a regular brush when you're highlighting. You're bringing it closer and closer to the edges. So I'm just doing this with the airbrush. And then for fine details, I can just come in with my regular brush. This is just giving me an idea where I have my shading, my highlight. So all my detail work will be done with the brush. I'm not going to do this to completion because he sits on top of it like right here, so a good portion from this over is all underneath the creature, so it'd be much darker. So my majority of my highlights, the bright highlights, will be right in this area. Bunch of little hylodrifts? Hylodrifts. That's the word I'm trying to get to. Or runes. There are runes here. See? Now this guy's real. That scenery piece is really cool. It's like a monument to the creature, Dagon. add some of the bright ivory. It's an off-white color, not pure white. Got a little bit of yellow. All right. Got about 5 more minutes. So in a sense, I'm kind of doing a zenithal highlighting with this too. Rotate. I'll have to go in with some more shading. Alright, so we're going to add some of the bold titanium white, the white, for our final highlight on all that. And that'll wrap us up for tonight. As that white is very pure white, so you don't want to add too much. You just want to add a little bit just to lighten it up. If anyone has any other questions, go ahead and pop those in the chat, and I'll answer them before I sign out. I'll take your questions. Almost out of the paint, so. And it's usually that last highlight is what makes it makes it pop. And then from here, I can go back in with my brush and add more shading, more highlighting, a little more detail work. Being real quick on this before I run out of paint. Some water and set that aside, and I'll clean it after. Alright. Let's see how they look so far. These paints, I paint daily. I'm a professional commission painter, full-time commission painter, I should say, and I paint on a daily basis. Oh yeah, I like that gray. Very cool. We'll add some purples and stuff in that. Yeah, I'm a full-time commission painter, and like I said, I paint daily. Between 6 to 10 hours maybe at most, I hope. And I use the paints. I've been using this one. This is my first empty bottle from this, and I use this almost all the time. So it really depends on the color of the paint, how much you use it, and things like that. This lasted me about 2 months. But I was painting, like I said, daily, and that's one color I use a lot. So other ones that I don't use a lot, like the orange, I still have quite a lot. So it really depends on what color you're using. Yeah. I just purchased a second one about a week or two ago, and I should have ordered 2. Because I use this a lot. I use this color a lot. It's my dark brown. I use it for the base coat on practically everything that I use. So I'm using it constantly. So about 2 months works really well. But there he is. So I'm going to go in and I'll add more. I'll add like purples and some greens and some more turquoises into this. But this gives me a nice starting point to look at and go from there. I'm painting this up for a friend of mine, and so I'm going to check with him and see what he thinks. I'm not sure if he's still watching the stream at the moment, and go from there. So, all right, and it's just after 5:30. So I want to thank everyone for stopping by, all the new friends that I met tonight. This is my first Saturday, and it turned out really well, so I'm really enjoying it. I'll be back streaming on Monday, starting at 5:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, and also on Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. So I changed my schedule up a bit. It was Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, but I switched it. Now it's Monday, Wednesday, and Monday and Wednesday night ones, 5:30 to 8, and then Saturday late afternoon. So once again, thank you very much for stopping by and checking me out, and all the new subscribers and followers, thank you very much. Glad you joined in on this wonderful trip, And if you want to check out some of my other stuff, go ahead and check on the links down below for the social media and Facebook, my website, Twitter, Instagram, all that fun stuff. So once again, thank you very much. If you like to keep up to date and you haven't already, please click on that follow button. I greatly appreciate it and love to see you guys next time. Guys and gals, have a good one. And see you on Monday. Bye now.